All right, let's jump right in and talk about Cardano. There's been a lot of buzz around it lately, especially with all the price action we've been seeing.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting ride. And, looking at Cardano's price can sometimes feel like trying to predict the weather, right? You've got all these factors influencing things.
And speaking of price, our analysis today highlights a bit of a dip, down 7%, putting it at 0.8694. And it even suggests a further slide to like 0.73 could happen. Should people be worried?
Well, I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. It's important to remember crypto is all about volatility.
Okay, so a 7% drop in the grand scheme of crypto, maybe not that huge.
Exactly. We have to remember we're talking about a market that can see swings of 72% in a single weekend.
Wait, 72%? Seriously?
Yep, Cardano pulled that off just last weekend. So yeah, these ups and downs are part of the game. It's a roller coaster, but hey, that's part of the excitement too, right?
I guess that's true, but still, 72%. That's wild. What on earth could cause that kind of a surge?
Well, remember, crypto's driven by a whole mix of factors, but sometimes there are very specific events that light the fire. In this case, there was a major announcement about a new partnership that expanded Cardano's reach, plus a really promising tech upgrade that boosted its efficiency. That kind of news can really get investors hyped, and when that happens, you see buying activity go through the roof.
So it's not just some mysterious market sentiment at play. There's actual stuff happening behind the scenes.
Right, exactly. That's why it's so important to stay in the loop. If you understand what's driving those price movements, you're in a much better position to make good decisions.
Makes sense. Now, this analysis also gets into the technical stuff, things like Fibonacci levels and a bearish crossover. Can you explain those in plain English?
Sure. Analysts use tools like these to try to anticipate where the price might go next. So think of Fibonacci levels as like these zones on a price chart, where historically, prices have tended to either find support, meaning they stop falling, or they hit resistance, meaning they have trouble going higher. And for Cardano right now, that 0.73 level we talked about, that lines up with a key Fibonacci level.
Oh, interesting. So if the price drops to that level and holds steady, that might be a good sign.
Could be, yeah. But if it breaks below that level, it might signal more downward movement.
Okay, and what about the bearish crossover? That doesn't sound too good.
Well, it's basically when a short-term moving average, think of it like a trend line, dips below a longer-term one. And in Cardano's case, we can actually see that happening right now, which kind of adds to the possibility of that dip towards 0.73. But, got to be careful with technical analysis. It's not a magic crystal ball.
Right, so there are signs pointing toward a potential dip, but it's not set in stone.
Exactly, exactly. There are always other factors at play. You can't just rely on one indicator.
All right, good to know. Now, the analysis also makes a pretty bold prediction. One analyst believes Cardano could hit $2. That would be a massive jump from where it is now. What's their logic there?
Well, they point to this pattern on the chart called a right-angled descending broadening wedge. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but basically it suggests that even though the price has been dropping, the size of those drops is getting smaller.
So kind of like a spring being compressed, ready to bounce back.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. It hints that selling pressure might be easing up and we could see a breakout upward.
So there's potential for some big upward movement, but reaching $2, that's a whole other story.
For sure. And remember, chart patterns are just one part of the picture. You got to consider the overall sentiment in the crypto market, what kind of tech advancements are happening, and even the global economic climate. It all ties in.
All right, so we've got potential for a dip, potential for a surge. What's the takeaway here? What should folks be watching for in the coming days and weeks if they're interested in Cardano?
Well, the key levels to watch are 0.73 on the downside and 1.14 on the upside. 0.73 is that Fibonacci support we talked about. If the price holds there, it could be a positive sign. On the other hand, if it breaks below that, we could see further decline.
And what about 1.14? Why is that level important?
That was the recent high Cardano reach before this correction we've been talking about. If we see a break above 1.14, that would be a strong signal that the buyers are back in control. And that could set the stage for a move toward that $2 target.
So those two price levels give us some clear markers to keep an eye on.
Exactly. But remember, price isn't the whole story. Cardano as a project has a lot more going for it than just its current trading value.
That's true. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day price fluctuations, but sometimes you need to step back and look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Cardano has a reputation for a really strong development team. They're focused on peer-reviewed research, and they're committed to real-world applications, these are all factors that could contribute to its long-term success regardless of any short-term price swings.
It's like, when you evaluate a company, you don't just look at the stock price. You consider their leadership, their product, and their overall position in the market.
Exactly. And in the crypto world, you also have to consider the technology itself. Cardano uses a proof-of-stake consensus mechanism, which is way more energy efficient compared to, say, Bitcoin's proof-of-work system. That's a big deal for sustainability, something more and more investors care about.
So even if someone isn't totally sold on the current price action, there are other reasons to be optimistic about Cardano's future.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that brings up another important point: diversification. Never put all your eggs in one basket, especially in a market as dynamic as crypto.
Right. Spreading your investments across different assets is classic financial advice. It applies to crypto, too.
Absolutely. And within the crypto space, there are just so many projects to explore, each with its own, unique strengths.
It does feel a little overwhelming sometimes, trying to keep up with all the different coins and tokens.
I hear you. But you don't have to become an expert on every single project out there. Just start by picking a few that align with your investment goals and your risk tolerance. Then do your research. Check out the team, the technology, the community, all those things we've been discussing.
So it's kind of like building a portfolio of stocks, but instead of companies, you're investing in crypto projects.
Exactly. And just like with stocks, a long-term perspective is key. Crypto is still young. There will be ups and downs along the way. But if you're patient and do your homework, the potential rewards can be significant.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Cardano's price, but let's zoom out for a moment and consider the broader crypto world. What other trends should people be paying attention to?
One of the most significant trends is the growing interest from institutional investors. We're seeing more and more hedge funds, pension funds, even governments starting to put money into crypto.
It's like the early days of the internet. What was once seen as this niche thing is now becoming mainstream.
That's a perfect analogy. And with mainstream adoption comes regulation. Governments around the world are working on setting up frameworks to regulate crypto, which could bring more clarity and security to the space.
Makes sense. I mean, more regulation might actually be a good thing for the long-term health of the crypto market, right?
I think so, yeah. It's a sign of maturity. Another trend to watch is the development of decentralized finance, or DeFi.
DeFi, we hear that term everywhere these days. What does it actually mean?
Essentially, DeFi aims to create a financial system that's open to everyone, without relying on traditional intermediaries like banks. It uses blockchain technology to allow people to lend, borrow, and trade directly with each other.
So it's cutting out the middleman in the financial world.
Exactly, and that has the potential to disrupt traditional finance in a big way.
It's pretty exciting stuff, but it can also feel daunting. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out in crypto?
The first rule of crypto: don't invest more than you can afford to lose. It's a volatile market. There's always a risk.
That's a crucial point. You got to be cautious.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't get swept up in the hype and make impulsive decisions. Do your research, invest in projects you believe in, and be patient.
Solid advice. So we've talked about Cardano's price potential, and we've touched on some broader trends in the crypto world. Let's circle back to that $2 price prediction for Cardano. What would it actually take for Cardano to get there?
Well, a few things would need to happen. First, we'd need to see a break above that 1.14 resistance level we talked about. That would be a strong signal that the buyers are back in charge.
Right, like breaking through a barrier.
Yeah, exactly. Then we'd need to see continued positive sentiment in the overall crypto market. If Bitcoin and other big players are doing well, Cardano is more likely to ride that wave.
So to some extent, Cardano's success depends on the health of the broader market.
To a degree, yes. But Cardano also needs to, keep its promises, right? We need to see steady progress on development, new partnerships, and real-world use of its technology. If all those pieces fall into place, then that $2 target might be within reach.
It sounds like a lot needs to go right, but the potential upside is pretty attractive. For those who are bullish on Cardano, what are some key things they should watch out for in the coming months?
Definitely keep an eye on the development progress. Are they hitting their milestones? Are they attracting new developers and users?
So it's not just hype, it's about actual progress.
Exactly. And pay attention to any announcements about new partnerships or collaborations. Those are signs that Cardano is gaining traction in the real world.
And of course, keep an eye on the overall crypto market sentiment. Like you said, a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's right. If Bitcoin and other big players are doing well, Cardano will probably benefit too. But, it always comes back to doing your own research. Make your own investment decisions based on your risk tolerance and financial goals.
Sound advice. All right, that's a wrap for part 1 of our look at Cardano. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into Cardano and the wider world of crypto.
So we've talked a lot about Cardano, but let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the broader crypto landscape. What other trends are you seeing that people should be aware of?
One major trend is the growing interest from institutional investors. We're seeing more and more hedge funds, pension funds, and even governments starting to allocate funds to crypto. This influx of institutional money is bringing increased legitimacy and stability to the market.
It's like the early days of the internet. What was once seen as a niche technology is now becoming mainstream.
That's a great analogy. And with this mainstream adoption comes increased regulation. Governments around the world are working to establish frameworks for regulating crypto, which could bring more clarity and security to the space.
That makes sense. More regulation could actually be a good thing for the long-term health of the crypto market.
Absolutely. It's a sign of maturation. Another trend to watch is the development of decentralized finance, or DeFi.
DeFi, that's a term we hear a lot these days. What exactly does it mean?
Essentially, DeFi aims to create a financial system that is open and accessible to everyone without the need for traditional intermediaries like banks. It leverages blockchain technology to enable peer-to-peer lending, borrowing, trading, and other financial services.
So it's like cutting out the middleman in the financial world.
Exactly. And this has the potential to disrupt traditional finance in a big way.
It's all pretty exciting stuff, but it can also feel a bit daunting. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting to dip their toes into the crypto world?
First and foremost, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. The crypto market is volatile, and there's always the risk of losing your investment.
That's a crucial point. It's important to approach crypto with a healthy dose of caution.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't get caught up in the hype and make impulsive decisions. Do your research, invest in projects you believe in, and be patient.
Solid advice. Okay, so we've talked a lot about Cardano's price potential, but let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the broader implications of this whole crypto revolution. What does the rise of cryptocurrencies mean for the future of finance?
It's a fascinating question, and one that's still unfolding. Cryptocurrencies have the potential to disrupt traditional finance in a major way. They offer a more transparent, efficient, and accessible way to manage and transfer value.
It's like the internet did for information. Crypto could do the same for money.
That's a great way to put it. And just like the internet, crypto is still in its early stages. We're only just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
It's an exciting time to be involved in this space, that's for sure. But with all this potential comes a lot of uncertainty. What are some of the biggest challenges facing the crypto industry today?
One challenge is scalability. As more people use cryptocurrencies, the networks need to be able to handle a larger volume of transactions.
Right, it's like a highway. If too many cars get on at once, you end up with a traffic jam.
Exactly. And that can lead to slower transaction times and higher fees. Another challenge is regulation. As we talked about earlier, governments are still trying to figure out how to regulate crypto. This uncertainty can create challenges for businesses and investors.
It's like the Wild West out there. A lot of potential, but also a lot of risks.
That's a good way to describe it. And then there's the issue of security. Cryptocurrencies are digital assets, which means they're vulnerable to hacking and theft.
So it's important to be aware of those risks and take steps to protect yourself.
Absolutely. Choose reputable exchanges, use strong passwords, and be careful about phishing scams.
It's like anything else online. You need to be smart about security.
Exactly. But despite these challenges, I'm incredibly optimistic about the future of crypto.
Me too. Feels like we're on the cusp of something truly revolutionary.
I agree. Crypto has the potential to transform the financial system and empower individuals in ways we never thought possible.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From Cardano's price potential to the broader trends shaping the crypto landscape, we've really taken a deep dive into this exciting world.
It's been a great conversation. And remember, the crypto world is constantly evolving, so stay curious, keep learning, and never stop exploring.
Well said. Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, happy crypto exploring.
Yeah, it's wild to think, right? I mean, the internet changed everything, and crypto feels like it has that same transformative power.
Absolutely. And one area where that potential is really making a difference. The developing world.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, crypto is giving people access to finance, people who've been shut out of the traditional system.
That makes sense. In places where banks are hard to come by or just not reliable, crypto could offer a much safer and efficient way to handle money.
Exactly. And we're seeing some really cool innovations in this space. Think mobile-first crypto wallets. Anyone with a smartphone can suddenly participate in the global economy. That's amazing. It really is leveling the playing field. That's one of the things that gets me so excited about the future of crypto, this potential to empower individuals and make finance fairer for everyone.
I agree. And it goes beyond just financial inclusion. Crypto's also tackling social and environmental problems.
Really. That's not something I've heard much about. What kind of stuff?
Well, for example, some projects are using blockchain to make sure products are sourced ethically, like tracking supply chains.
Oh, why?
Others are using crypto to fund renewable energy projects, to fight climate change.
Interesting.
We're even seeing crypto support humanitarian aid efforts, making charitable giving more transparent.
So it's not just about finance. It's about making a real difference in the world.
Exactly. That's what I find so inspiring about this space. It's not just making money, it's about building a better future.
That's a great way to put it. So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired and wants to learn more, wants to get involved, what would you recommend? Where should they start?
Education is key. There are tons of resources, online articles, videos, podcasts. You can learn the basics of blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Right. Do your research first.
Exactly. Find a few trustworthy sources and just start learning. And don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto community is super welcoming. They love to help newcomers.
It's like anything new. There's a learning curve, but anyone can figure it out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And once you get a feel for how crypto works, you can start checking out different projects, invest in the ones that feel right for you, ones that match your values and goals.
And, important reminder, start small. Only invest what you can afford to lose. Crypto can be volatile.
Couldn't agree more. Diversification is so important. Spread your investments across different projects. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Manage your risk.
Absolutely. And most importantly, have fun with it. The crypto world is full of innovation and excitement. Enjoy the ride.
Well said. It's been fantastic talking to you today. We've covered a lot, from Cardano's price potential to the bigger picture of crypto and what it could mean for the future.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much this technology has already changed things, and we're just getting started. Who knows what's next for crypto, but it's definitely going to be an exciting journey. Thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, happy exploring.